picked one of my beautiful questions from my cup, and the topic was personality assessments versus human design. And I thought, well, what a great topic to explore, to discuss, to provide my humble opinions on, seeing as that is my design sun, 17 line 1, here to my purpose. Actually, I found out last week, which was ironic based on what's going on in the world. Here to challenge the establishment. So let's just get into challenging the establishment of personality assessments versus human design. But I'm going to start this by saying, hey, they all have a place in the world. They all have value, whether any kind of personality assessment versus human design. One is not better than the other. They all provide insights, and I think they're all wildly valuable. But to provide the insight from what I've been through, so somebody who has grown up in the human resources world, I've taken what feels like every single assessment out on the market. Probably not, but I'll just be dramatic for effect. But have found that being a personal development junkie, I'm also a generator, so I love to know myself. And what I found over the years, and having gone through all the assessments, having gotten the results of the assessments, then looking into human design, I think they all have a place and they all provide value. So that's what we're going to discuss today. So I chose some of the ones that were most forefront in my mind. I know there's a lot on the market. And let me also provide the caveat. I'm not an expert in all of these assessments. I know at the very surface level, I have a good enough foundation to say, hey, this is what they measure. This is what they're all about. These are what the results gave me. I have much more of a foundation and authority in human design. But we'll take all that information together. We'll cobble together my opinions based on these details, and then we'll head into it. And then Margaret, I know that you're in the leadership space. So if you have any opinions or insights into any of this, so please feel free to share them, or if you want, I'll invite you on here. We'll jam together. So the personality assessments that I pulled forward were Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinders, DISC, Enneagram, and the Energy Leadership Index, which actually is a little bit more nuanced than the others. The Energy Leadership Index actually comes from IPEC, which is the coaching certification that I obtained. And I'm certified in doing an ELI. So it may not necessarily be as popular as some of the others, but I included it because it had some interesting insights based on the results that I got. Oh my God, 6 years ago now? Holy crap. And then kind of pairing that with my human design. Okay, I want to reiterate, they all have a place in the world, just like everybody's perspective. Wow, we have 8 billion people on this planet. That's 8 billion perspectives that deserve to be heard, learned from, explored, and taken in to challenge our own insights. But hey, who am I, right? What do I know? So they're all phenomenal places to start. Any piece of information or awareness, I believe, is truly valuable. It all gives us a starting point to not only understand our behaviors, but understand the thoughts and actions, to understand the thoughts and emotions that drive those behaviors. Because awareness to me is like the end all be all. If we are aware of something, if we can look at something, if we can create a space to start to understand something, then we can do something about it. It's when we hide behind walls. It's when we hide behind curtains. It's when we refuse to face something and not gain awareness around it, that's really the dangerous thing, right? And if that's not something we've learned until last week, then I don't know what is, right? I think we all have lessons to learn about what's going on in the world, and we all need to stop being so divisive, but I'm going to get off that soapbox right now. Okay. So let's start with Myers-Briggs. I first took Myers-Briggs God, what year is this? 2025. I probably took a Myers-Briggs back in 2007. My first result was an ESTJ. I took it again, maybe in 2015, 2016. I don't know, decade later. Let's do round math here. I was then an ENTP. From a Myers-Briggs standpoint, it's all about kind of measuring your preferences. And that's something to really kind of think about, is that, there was differences in my assessments. And as I'm looking back on it, it's kind of like, okay, well, it's likely that my preferences changed, based on what I was going through in 2007 versus what I was going through in 2015, 2016, 2017, whenever I took it. My preferences changed. However, what's really, really interesting is an ESTJ. And again, this is just cobbling from the internet. Again, I'm not an expert in any of these other than ELI and human design. So just bear with me here. So an ESTJ, based on my research, is an executive, an organizer, a manager of people, processes, systems. And I'm reading notes over here because I took some notes. Detail-oriented, rule-following, rigid, and resistance to change. Now, in 2007, yeah, I would say that was my preference. I had somewhat just come out of college. I had graduated from my master's degree in 2007. Yeah, I was all about, let me follow the rules, let me get in line, let me be organized, let me do all the things. Fast forward, then I became or my preferences became more aligned with an ENTP, a debater, an innovator, energetic, quick-witted, idea-driven, a brainstormer. I like to take on multiple perspectives, which, as you can see, is a contrast to the resistance to change, rigid kind of thing. Seeing patterns that others may not be able to see, a natural risk taker who enjoys figuring things out as I go along. Yep. 1000%. And what's really interesting is when I look back at those two results, all of those things can be my preferences. I can be rigid and resistant to change, but I can also be very open to new ideas, really trying to see something from a different point of view, trying to identify patterns that allow us the opportunity to move forward in a more productive way. I can bridge both sides of that coin. I can be that contradictory sometimes, which I think is a really big lesson for us to learn, is that we are humans. We are complex. We are we're huge enigmas, and we actually can hold competing thoughts. We can hold at times competing beliefs. We can hold at times competing behaviors, and that still be who we are at our core. And we'll kind of talk about this as we kind of lean into human design. Okay, so then going to Strengths Finders. I tried to find my Strengths Finders. I took it 3 times, and I had 3 different results. And I couldn't find any of my assessments. So I can't remember what I was or how I was labeled or what my strengths were. But it was just interesting to note that my strengths changed. And I want to say, based on my memory, that there was one common theme or one common strength through all of them, but I can't remember what it was. Couldn't find any of my results. But I thought that was really interesting. Again, it kind of goes back to kind of reflecting on when I took those at different stages of my life. And the thing about personality assessments is that when we take them, we can get caught up in the humanity of answering those questions. And by that, I mean, we can get caught in the recency effect of like, oh, this is what just happened to me in my life. And we just remember how it affected us or what we were thinking or feeling. And we answer questions based on that. They're a little bit more subjective, which doesn't make them wrong. It simply points out that there's just some flaws in the system. But those flaws actually lead to a ton of insights about the juxtaposition that we as humans carry with us and how we change and evolve and transform and transcend at different points in our lives. And just because I received different results at different points in my life actually doesn't mean they were wrong. It simply pinpoints studies. Human design gives us the why. It gives us like, okay, here are the results of my personality assessment. Here's where that comes from based on my design. And we'll talk about that kind of when we get through a little bit more of the assessments. As a disc, I think I've taken the disc maybe 2 or 3 times. Same every time. I am a high DI. And according to that, my strengths are bold, charismatic, I'm a quick decision maker. Yes, I am. I thrive in fast-paced environments. I have high energy. Yeah, as anybody who's ever met me can attest. And that pinpoints something I wanna address too, is that these personality assessments are wildly fantastic. Again, they give us a great foundation from which to start our awareness. One of the challenges or drawbacks that I see about them is that they lump everyone into these labels, which is great. I think labels are a good starting point. I think sometimes we get caught up and we keep them maybe too rigidly. But I'll talk about this a little bit when we get to human design and come back. Hopefully, I remember. But this idea of, for those who are Ds or high DIs or quick decision makers, well, depending on your design, yes, as a high DI, you may make quick decisions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's actually correct for you. Now, somebody who's like me, who isn't emotionally defined and my sacral is defined to my spleen, yeah, I'm here to be a quick decision maker. So that works for me. But we'll talk about kind of those nuances when we get to human design, and that sometimes human design just provides a little bit more of like just a nuance, and allows us the opportunity to take the results from our personality assessments and create a deeper understanding of what they really mean and how we can more effectively apply them to our life. Doesn't mean they're wrong. It simply means that there may be different strategies that if you're a D versus I'm a D, you're emotionally defined versus I'm not, then what those nuances really mean for us and how it plays out as both being high DIs, for example. My work style is a high DI. I'm gonna give me a hot second. I'm just gonna move this. My notes, I can't really see them because my camera's in the way. Um, Bearing with me. Okay, this is a little better. I'm gonna turn my head, but that's okay. Work style. I push hard for outcomes, while rallying people to join me. I'm often seen as a natural leader, as an entrepreneur, right? We're going back to the high DI here. Excel in roles that require influence, persuasion, rapid execution. Again, that kind of aligns both the D and the I, in that profile. Challenges. These work too. May overlook details or follow through in pursuit of speed. 100%. And we'll talk about kind of where that comes from when we understand our human design. Risk of overpromising and overcommitting due to enthusiasm. Yep, 1000% as a generator. And we'll talk about kind of what that means. And then can come across as forceful, 100%. Overly dominant, absolutely. And action seeking if unchecked. Yep, and yes. And again, we'll talk. Actually, I don't like this being over here. No, see, we're on the fly here. So we'll talk about kind of what that means in terms of human design. Okay, now an Enneagram. I've only ever taken an Enneagram online for free. So these results may be, I don't want to say tainted, but maybe not 100% in line with the spirit of what the Enneagram is. I've also never had anyone who was certified in the Enneagram provide my results back to me. So I take these with a grain of salt simply because it's online, not because I disagree with the results. Actually, they're actually pretty accurate. I'm actually going to move my camera. How about that? But I just want to give that caveat. So according to what I've taken is I'm a 7 in terms of Enneagram. So I'm optimistic, energetic, and future oriented. Yep. I thrive on possibilities, new ideas, big visions, quick to reframe challenges into opportunities. Yes. I don't like feeling stuck in negativity. That is 1 billion percent a part of my energetic makeup. Often the life of the party tends to bring enthusiasm and momentum. Yep, certainly can. My strengths, problem solver. I see options that others might miss. Charismatic, fun, inspiring, resilient. Bounce back quickly. Big picture thinkers. Challenges and blind spots. Struggle with follow through. Yes, 100%. May jump from idea to idea without finishing. Sure do. Can avoid difficult emotions and uncomfortable truths. Yes. Risk of overcommitting. Again, there's another theme. May seem superficial or restless when deeper connection is needed. Yeah. So, kind of, again, going back to my original point is that human design versus personality assessments, one is no better than the other. Actually, every assessment that I've ever taken I've seen myself reflected back to me. Right. Again, and a lot of that can be self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, it's kind of how we perceive ourselves and how we answer these subjective questions, or as objective as we possibly can. But there's a reason for it. And that's why I love I love pairing these things together to say, okay, this is what the personality assessment, this is how I perceive myself. And then these results that are giving back to me. Human design allows the foundation to kind of come up and come through and show us, okay, where does that really come from? And more importantly, how can I identify strategies moving forward when at times I feel conflicted of like, yeah, I bring all this energy, but then I'm like a bull in a china shop and it's like, yep, I started it, boop, I'm out. And oftentimes in situations like that, we can feel guilt and shame and um like we're lesser than because we have these competing personality traits or complex personality traits. And that's when we kind of get into this imposter syndrome stuff. And, I will say anybody out there with either a 2 in your profile or you have a lot of line 2s, you're going to feel like an imposter because you can't feel your strengths. But that's another story for another day. But I would say that those of us with line 2s, a lot of line 2s, I don't have it in my profile, but it's the most dominant line in my design. If you have it in your profile, hmm, yes, I feel for you. You can't necessarily always see your design or your talents, and you just have to trust that they are there. Okay, so energy leadership index. Again, this one's a little bit more nuanced than the others. It's not as popular in the market. Again, it is specific to IPEC graduates if they decided that they wanted to get an energy leadership index certification. But what an energy leadership index does is it measures the energy that you demonstrate on a good day and on a stressful day. So it kind of divides um, divides you into 7 different levels of energy and shows you, kind of how you present yourself to other people through your energy. So it's not necessarily the same kind of like definition of energy as human design, but there can be links. So for me personally, when I took it back in 2019, I had an even distribution of level 4 energy and level 5 energy, which was really actually wildly interesting after I learned human design. So level 4 energy is associated with kind of like servant leadership. It's this energy of constantly giving, constantly being of service, constantly giving yourself of others, trying to solve their problems, trying to, make sure that they feel okay. It's a very heart-driven energy, a very emotional-driven energy. Equal levels of energy on level 5, very pragmatic, very logical, very I can see the opportunity in anything. Almost kind of like not devoid of emotion, but much more head centered, mental focused than emotionally focused. So at the time, and understand that through your energy leadership, every time you take it, you may actually be demonstrating different levels of energy. We won't get into that. But at the time, I was demonstrating or putting out into the world kind of this equal level of let me solve your problem. And I see this very pragmatic. So let me give you all of my heart, but let me use my brain at the same time. Which yeah, I definitely felt that at the time in 2019, trying to prove that I was the best person out there and best human resources director out there and could solve all your problems. Okay. This is where we start to, kind of bring the human design into it. Is that again, every time I've taken a personality assessment, it has been an accurate reflection of me and what I believe about myself. And that is the greatest thing about human design is that it actually shows you the conflict or the tension that can sometimes exist in your own energy. And human design also provides the why behind the what somehow, behind the what, and sometimes the how. As in, human design gives you the why to show you the what in that behavior and how that comes out, or more importantly, how to maybe unravel some of the things that are challenges for you, that are blind spots for you, that are things that make it challenging to reach the level of success that you want to see in your life because you get constantly stuck in the patterns of challenges and blind spots and all the things, right? So I'll give you a great example. One of the first areas of tension, I'll call it tension because that's what it feels like sometimes, is when you look at your profile on human design. Now there are 12 different profiles: 1-3, 1-4, 2-4, 2-5, 3-6, 4-6, 4-1, 5-1, 5-2, 6-3, 6-2, 6-3. Was that 12? I think I missed one in there. It's fine. Anyway, of those, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are harmonic to one another. And we won't get into what that truly means. But when you look at a 2-5 or a 5-2 or a 6-3 or 3-6, or a 1-4 or 4-1, so that's 6. They are harmonic. Those lines, when we talk about, if we were to get into the nitty-gritty of human design, those lines are harmonic to one another, meaning that they aren't necessarily always harmony. Sometimes you have to find the harmony in those things. But there's this natural harmony in kind of the energy that someone experiences within themselves. Now, all the others are what in the world of human design we call dissonant. They don't like connect with one another, except for the fact that they exist inside of you or a part of your energetic makeup. So, for example, I'm a 1-3 profile. Consciously, I'm a 1 line. I am wildly innocent in terms of like, maybe not necessarily like in the traditional sense, but like what I mean is that my energy is innocent. Is that I can feel really insecure in terms of a foundation that I stand on. I like to stand proverbially on a very solid foundation of my knowledge, of my beliefs, of whatever. I'm an investigator. I will dig and dig and dig and dig and dig into details in order to build that foundation for me to stand on, to be seen and feel as an authority. And an authority not in terms of like I'm better than anyone else. It's more or less I'm an authority in the thing that I'm talking about. Because I've done so much research into that thing, I'm now standing on a solid foundation. But then take my unconscious side, my 3 line. My 3 line is the line of trial and error, of breaking things. By that I mean like going into situations and being like, oh yeah, that doesn't work at all. That is okay. We're gonna write that down as a lesson learned. That we'll never redo that one again. It's a bonds made and broken, meaning that I can come in and out, and it's necessary for me to come in and out of relationships constantly to determine if that's the right relationship for me. So in the sense, my unconscious part of my energy is like, no, Lauren, you got to go out there and you got to F up. You got to make mistakes. You've got to see what works and what doesn't. So imagine this unconscious drive in me that's like, no. Just go out there and mess up. Like, do your thing. It's okay. And then the conscious part of me that is insecure when I don't feel like I have a solid foundation to stand on. And you can kind of see how those two things butt up against one another. Of like, I have to go out there and mess up so that I can build the foundation. And so it's this idea of human design helps us understand where some of the natural tension and almost internal resistance we feel inside of ourselves comes from, so that we are aware of it and we can learn to, one, make peace with it, and two, live our lives in a way that allows us the opportunity to reduce or diminish the resistance we feel because we don't understand those things about ourselves. And what I always like to do too is take the human design and go back to like some of the challenges or blind spots that a lot of these assessments bring up, because it's valuable to see our blind spots and to understand, oh, that's where it comes from. So for instance, like if we're going to the Enneagram where it says type 7, right? Struggles are struggle with follow through. May jump from idea to idea without finishing. 100%. That's the conditioning of a generator. When a generator doesn't understand that we're here to respond, that it doesn't necessarily always matter what our mind believes that we should do, If we're responding to the mental story, that's when we get ourselves caught up into these instances where we'll jump into something, we'll give our energy to it, and then we're like, "Oh my, yeah, I don't want any part of that. No, 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 no. I actually don't have the available energy for this. I want nothing to do with it. I'm about to rip my hair out." And that's when, as a generator, our frustration really comes in, and you can start to see that we are just not committed to this thing at all. And we'll do anything in our power to jump ship. Like, let's get the hell out. You see this a lot amongst entrepreneurial manifesting generators and generators, is that like we go out there and we do the things we think we should. Like, you can see it online sometimes. I'm guilty of it as all get out. It's like I'll do something and I'll put it out there, and then like a week into it, I'm like, yeah, I want nothing to do with this like project that I put out there or this offer that I put out there. Okay, so let me just like take a step back and let's hope that no one saw it, right? It's that kind of stuff. And it's understanding that as a generator who has a defined mind, so my mind literally never stops, is that I say yes to the external opportunities that are presented to me, and I've got to work really, really hard not to allow my mind to say, "Oh, well, if I do this, then I can do this, then I can do this, and once I do this, I can then jump into this next thing," and to really keep how do I say this? To really keep it so that it's my bodily energy responding versus my mental energy for something. Again, this is where human design helps us to understand why the blind spots exist or why we feel conflicted about things, to really understand of, oh, my energy works in response to something, not if I'm trying to initiate it like I've been conditioned and taught to do my entire life. Can avoid another challenge for a 7. Can avoid difficult emotions or uncomfortable truths by staying busy or distracted. 1000%. I am emotionally undefined as a generator. So uh, the borrowed frequency of an undefined emotional center is I will avoid truth. Simply because feeling a lot of emotions or receiving a lot of emotions from other people, I want absolutely nothing to do with it. It's really challenging for me to feel as if I am responsible for someone else feeling a way that they do. Now, logically, I know I can't make anyone feel anything, but I also recognize my actions, thoughts, behaviors, whatever, words affect other people. And while I may not make them, I don't, I don't, um, you know, force them to feel something. It doesn't mean that they don't feel the thing. And as an undefined person, I absorb that emotion from them, and I avoid truths because I want to avoid them feeling bad, and by default me feeling bad because I'm absorbing their emotions. Now, on the flip side of things, I am a generator. I'm a sacral generator. My authority is my sacral, but it is tied to my splenic system, is directly linked to my splenic system or my spleen, which is all about feel good. Like, that's the thing about my design, is that I'm here to feel literally physically feel good all the time. And I've noticed that if I look back in my life, yes, there can be times when I'm superficial, and I accept that about myself, is that sometimes I do stay surface level because sometimes feeling the really deep things, it's really challenging for me. Emotions are really chaotic. I have a really hard time making sense of them. I feel physically unwell sometimes when I feel so much emotion. And as somebody who has a completely defined spleen, meaning every gate in my spleen is activated and oftentimes more than once, I'm all about feeling good, sweet peas. So when something interrupts that, yeah, I will tend to like, no, 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 let's get back to equilibrium. I want to feel good. I can't change that about myself, right? It's just an awareness for me of like, yes, my default energy would be, go to something feel good. If that means I have to avoid the emotional thing, then I've got to do the emotional thing. But it's all about understanding that awareness. And in my own journey, what I've learned is that taking the time to actually feel pain, and I will say emotional pain, to feel emotionally unwell, is hugely therapeutic for me. One, it keeps me from stuffing everything down, as challenging as it may be, but it also widens my understanding of the emotional realm. And it allows me to be more empathetic and to be more sympathetic towards other people, even though it's wildly uncomfortable for me. But that's life. I mean, I can't spend my entire while my energy defaults to always wanting to feel good and feel well and all the things. I'm human. I'm part of the human experience. I'm gonna feel shit, and I can't avoid that. But having the awareness of knowing that I am actively avoiding something, I can be like, okay, Lauren, let's take a hot pause. What are you distracting yourself with in avoidance of feeling things? Risk of overcommitting and anything because it's fun and it's cool and whatever. I also have a completely undefined ego, gateless ego. It's wide open. So until I understood that, I was constantly, and I'll say this, whoring my energy out because it was like, oh, I have to say yes in order to prove that I'm talented, or I have to say yes in order to prove I'm charismatic, or I have to say yes in order to prove my worth or my intelligence or how good of a partner, daughter, mother, whatever I am, whatever role insert at that moment. So, yes, that's why I love pairing a personality assessment with your human design to say, okay, I know where that challenge comes from. I know where that block comes from. I know my mind is trying to convince me, give your energy away to prove to the other person that you are the perfect insert label. Well, honey, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect at all. It's taken me a long time to admit that. I've known that my entire life. I also just have a lot of logical energy, which is all about perfection, perfecting the pattern. So I constantly fight this internal tension of like, logically, I know I'm not here to be perfect, but my energy is always seeking perfection. So again, it's just something I have to balance now that I understand the mechanics of my energy. Being so logical, my entire incarnation cross is rooted in logical energy. It's rooted in perfection. It's rooted in how do we make things better. So I will always be the person of when someone asks me, "Oh my God, Lauren," or when someone says to me, "Oh my God, Lauren, that was fantastic." I'll be the first person to say, "Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. However, I would have done X, Y, Z better or differently." Or that's my energy is just constantly looking for the, okay, yes, but how do we improve? And I will say I get that reflected back to me as a mother a lot. My kids will often say to me, and I take this to heart, is like, nothing is ever good enough. And it wasn't until I learned my energy and how things come out of my mouth, um, that I'm like, okay, you guys are onto something here. As a mother, I can be, I'll just say it, I can be judgmental. I can be very critical. And I can be like, well, what if we just tried to do this a little differently? And sometimes it is so unconscious. I don't see it until they've reflected it back to me. And I'm like, okay, you guys are absolutely right. I recognize that my logical energy is coming out full force right now. So what I've done is I've started to say, I'll say something and I'll hear it. I'll be like, that's not a criticism of you personally. I'm simply just looking at the system and trying to say, okay, how can we make this a little bit better? And I've just opened up the dialogue with my kids to say, guys, I'm not trying to be a critical bitch here. Just recognize that sometimes it will come out of my mouth sometimes when I don't even recognize it because my throat is unconscious. And I give the accountability to them to say, you guys are open to talking to me and saying, hey, mom, it feels like things are really, really critical right now. And maybe you're judging me a little bit too much. I'm like, hey, totally understand. Let's back it up. Let's figure out how we can do this a little differently. And I'm open with them and saying, guys, sometimes there are times I can't change it. I can just be way more aware of it than I have been in the past. And it's allowed us as mother and son or mother and sons together to really figure out how best to communicate with one another and create an atmosphere where our energies, when they clash, because they do a lot, we can work together to say, okay, I see it's your energy coming out. How do I take it in differently? Or times when it's my energy coming out, how do they take it in differently? Got off on a little bit of tangent there, but that one's really important. Um, so, all in all, the whole message in this whole thing is personality assessments, human design, they are all incredibly useful because they allow us to see one of the most important things to see is awareness, is a reflection of our energy, is a reflection of our behavior, is a reflection of our thoughts, is a reflection of our emotions. Because once we have the awareness, we have the opportunity to shift things that aren't working, to approach things differently. Again, with these blind spots, these blind spots, in my opinion, that come up from these personality assessments are driven by our borrowed frequency. And I talk a lot about our borrowed frequency. The technical term in human design is the not self. When I call the borrowed frequency, it's because our openness, the open centers in our energy are truly our places of wisdom. It's what we're here to learn about life. And it's not until we understand how our mind is misinterpreting how to utilize our open centers, that's the only starting point to getting out from under the influence of the borrowed frequency or our not self. Because it's our not self, our borrowed frequency that keeps us from stepping into the world as truly ourselves and exemplifying, communicating our unique and personal perspective that we are here to add to the world based on the mechanics of our design. And that's what I find so beautiful is that everyone's perspective, everyone's point of view has a place in this world. And it becomes even more effective when that is coming from our true frequency. The authentic, energetic mechanic that we are designed to present into the world. Where we run into trouble is when that energy or when that perspective or when that message comes from our borrowed frequency, because that's not necessarily truly who we are. And the message for today, and I think the universe often knows like when to create the opportunities, is that, we have how do I say this? What is it that I really want to say? Like we have the obligation, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us and who we connect with, to understand who we truly are so that we can provide the message that was imprinted on us, or we can provide the perspective that was imprinted on us the moment that we came into this world. And, my idealistic hope for the world is that we can come to terms and come to grips with that we're all wildly complex. We can have competing thoughts. We can have competing beliefs. That doesn't mean that we're wrong. It doesn't mean that the other person is wrong. It doesn't mean we're right. It doesn't mean the other person's right. It simply means that we have a perspective that we were intended to share with this world, to contribute to this world, not only so that we could demonstrate what it means through our energy, but to allow others to take that in, allow others to learn from us, allow others to see a different perspective and say, hey, you know what? That's a beautiful thing. Doesn't have to change who I am, It doesn't have to affect my frequency at all. It simply means that I get to take it in, I get to ruminate with it, I get to translate it through my energy, take the lesson I want, leave those that I don't, right? And, I again, my idealistic view of the world, I wish everyone would learn their true frequency. And that's what I'm here to support those who are ready, who are willing, who have the courage to face the frequency that they are here to carry, to face the contradiction, to face the juxtaposition, to face the natural tension that might exist within them so that they can understand you're not wrong. You're simply human. You're human who's complex. You're beautiful. You're an enigma. And you're here to share a very unique perspective of the world, even if that's not always logical all the time. Thank you so much for joining, Margaret. I appreciate you. Um, and if anybody has any questions or wants to comment, please feel free. I feel very passionately about this. I'm all about bringing down the establishment. Clearly, that's my purpose. So I learned last week. Um, but thank you all so much. I adore everyone's energy because it allows me the opportunity to learn from it, to see it from a different perspective, to translate it through my own. And if you are ready and willing to see your own frequency, to learn about your own frequency, to apply your own frequency to this world, let's connect. And let's see if this is the right time, the right fit, and I am the right guide to support you in that. Happy Thursday.